David Reed watched through the transport window as Waystation Tau 9 grew larger against the black canvas of space. The structure looked older than anything he had seen before, its metal surface covered in patterns that seemed almost organic. Strange symbols marked sections of the hull, glowing faintly in languages he did not recognize. This was going to be his new home, at least for a while. The divorce papers had been signed 3 months ago. The engineering firm he worked for had laid off half its staff 2 months after that. When the job posting for Waystation Tau 9 appeared on his screen, David had applied without thinking too hard about it. Remote location, decent pay, and far enough from Earth that he could pretend his old life had never happened. The docking procedure took longer than expected. David counted at least 15 different species moving through the arrival bay, some walking, some floating, some moving in ways that defied easy description. A four-armed creature with gray skin and kind eyes approached him as he stepped off the transport. David Reed. The translator in David's ear rendered the sounds into English. "I am Brent. I will be your supervisor." "Good to meet you," David said, shaking one of Brent's 4 hands. Brent led him through corridors that twisted and turned in ways that made no logical sense. The architecture felt wrong, as if whoever had built this place had operated on different principles of geometry. They passed market stalls where vendors sold things David could not identify, restaurants that smelled both appetizing and disturbing, and gathering spaces where dozens of species mixed freely. The station was built by the architects, Brent explained as they walked. No one knows where they went. We just maintain what they left behind. How old is it? 12,000 years, give or take a few centuries. Brent's voice carried a note of pride. It has never stopped functioning. Your job is to help keep it that way. They reached the engineering section, a vast space filled with equipment that combined ancient technology with modern additions. Screens showed readouts from thousands of systems throughout the station. David recognized maybe half of what he was looking at. "You will work night shifts for the first month," Brent said. "Fewer people around. Easier to learn without distractions." David nodded. Night shifts suited him fine. He had not been sleeping well anyway. Brent showed him the maintenance logs, the emergency procedures, the locations of critical systems. Everything seemed straightforward enough. Then Brent pulled up a map of the station on one of the screens. Most of the structure glowed green, indicating active sections. One area marked as Section 7 showed red. "What is that?" David asked, pointing at the red zone. Brent's forearms tensed. "Section 7 is sealed. You do not go there, ever." "Why?" "Those are the rules." Brent's tone left no room for argument. "Section 7 is forbidden. Every species that comes to this station knows this. Now you know it too." David wanted to ask more questions, but something in Brent's posture told him to let it go, for now. His quarters were small but comfortable, with a window that looked out at the stars. David unpacked his few belongings and tried to settle in. Sleep did not come easily. He kept thinking about that red zone on the map. His first night shift started at what the station called midnight, though time meant little in space. David walked through the quiet corridors, checking systems and making notes. Most of the work was routine. Replace a worn seal here, recalibrate a sensor there, investigate a minor fluctuation in power distribution. Around what would have been 3 in the morning, David found himself in a corridor near the boundary of Section 7. Massive doors blocked the way forward, covered in warning signs. He counted 43 different languages, all saying variations of the same thing. Stay out, danger, forbidden, do not enter. David stood there, studying the doors. They were not security barriers. They were maintenance seals, the kind used to close off damaged sections or areas undergoing repair. He had override codes for doors like these. That seemed strange. If Section 7 was truly dangerous, why would a new maintenance worker have access? He was about to turn away when he heard it. A sound, deep and resonant, that seemed to come from beyond the doors. It lasted only a moment, then faded into silence. David pressed his hand against the cold metal of the door. Nothing. Just his imagination, probably. The stress of the move, the divorce, the new job. His mind was playing tricks on him. He returned to the engineering section and pulled up the station's historical records. Most of the information about Section 7 had been redacted or deleted. He found only fragments, references to something called the Chained One, mentions of the last warden, a single line in a report from 300 years ago. The prisoner remains contained. No contact attempted, prisoner. Someone or something was locked in Section 7. David spent the rest of his shift searching for more information. He found almost nothing. Whatever was behind those doors, someone had worked very hard to erase its history. As his shift ended and other workers began arriving, David made his way back to his quarters. He passed a small bar that catered to the night shift workers. An elderly Quillen with silver-streaked skin was cleaning. Glasses behind the counter. You look troubled, she said in a voice that reminded David of his grandmother. Just trying to learn my way around, David replied. You went near Section 7. It was not a question. I can see it in your face. Everyone gets curious at first. What is in there? The old Quillen set down her glass and looked at David with eyes that had seen too much. Something that has been there for 1,000 years. Something that every wise person leaves alone. But what is it? A dragon, she said quietly. Chained and forgotten. And if you value your life, you will forget about it too. David walked back to his quarters with those words echoing in his mind. A dragon, chained for 1,000 years, left alone by every species that knew about it. He lay in his bed staring at the ceiling and knew he would not be able to forget. Something about that deep resonant sound called to him. Something about those doors and their 43 warnings made him want to understand. Somewhere in the sealed darkness of Section 7, something ancient waited, and David Reed, despite every warning and every instinct for self-preservation, knew he would eventually open those doors. The sound came again that night as he tried to sleep, distant but unmistakable. It sounded almost like a voice, almost like someone calling out, almost like a cry for help. 3 days passed, but David could not stop thinking about Section 7. During his shifts, he found himself drifting toward those sealed doors, listening for that sound. During his sleep periods, he dreamed of voices calling from the dark. He spent his free time in the station's archives, searching through old records. Most files about Section 7 had been deleted or corrupted. The few that remained told fragments of a story that made no sense. A fleet destroyed, a battle that ended a war, a punishment that lasted centuries. On his 4th night shift, David pulled up the environmental data for Section 7. What he found made his stomach tighten. The life support systems were failing. Oxygen levels had dropped by 40% over the past century. Temperature controls were barely functioning. Power distribution was erratic. Something was alive in there, and it was slowly dying. David brought his findings to Brent the next day. His supervisor listened with growing discomfort, his forearms crossing and uncrossing. This is not your concern, Brent said finally. But if something is alive in there, then it has survived for 1,000 years. It will continue to survive. Brent's tone was firm. You are new here, David. You do not understand. Section 7 is forbidden for good reasons. What reasons? Because everyone agrees it must be. Brent stood up, signaling the conversation was over. Do your job. Forget about Section 7. David left the meeting frustrated. He had always been the kind of person who needed to understand things, to fix problems when he saw them. Ignoring a failing life support system went against every instinct he had. That night he returned to the bar where he had met the elderly Quillen. She was there again, moving slowly between tables, serving drinks to the handful of customers who preferred the quiet. Hours. You came back, she said when she saw David. Most people only ask about Section 7 once. You said there was a dragon in there, and I said many things. She poured him a drink without asking what he wanted. My name is Ruth. You should know that before you ask me to break my silence. David introduced himself properly this time. They talked for a while about nothing important, the way strangers do when they are testing each other. Finally, Ruth sat down across from him. My grandfather told me stories, she said. Stories his grandfather told him. About the dragon called Ash. Ash? That is what the old records called it. Before the records were erased. Ruth's eyes grew distant. 1,000 years ago, there was a dragon empire. They ruled this sector of space with absolute power. They believed other species were beneath them, useful only as servants or resources. David leaned forward, listening carefully. Ash was one of their warriors, one of their best. When the Empire ordered Ash to destroy a colony of what they called lesser species, Ash refused, fought against the Empire instead, saved the colony. Ruth's voice dropped to a whisper. The dragons could not allow such disobedience. They chained Ash here as punishment, as an example. They spread stories that Ash had gone mad, had become a destroyer. They made sure everyone feared what was behind those doors. But the Dragon Empire is gone now, David said. Gone for 800 years. But the fear remains. The story remains. And Ash remains, chained in the dark while generations pass and everyone agrees it is safer to leave things as they are. David felt something cold settle in his chest. So Ash is innocent? Innocent or guilty, does it matter after 1,000 years? Ruth stood up slowly. What matters is that approaching Ash means death. That is what everyone believes. That is what keeps us safe. Safe from what? From the truth? Ruth looked at him with an expression David could not quite read. Sadness, maybe? Or resignation. You have the look of someone who will not let this go. I have seen that look before. It never ends well. David returned to his quarters but could not rest. He kept thinking about what Ruth had said. About Ash chained and alone for 1,000 years. About a punishment that had outlived the civilization that imposed it. About everyone who had walked past those doors for centuries, knowing something was dying in there and done nothing. The next night, David stood before the doors of Section 7 with his engineering tablet in his hand. The override codes were right there. He had legitimate access. Technically, he was supposed to inspect all maintenance systems on the station. Section 7 had maintenance systems. He could hear his ex-wife's voice in his head, telling him he always had to be the hero, always had to fix things that were not his problem. Maybe she had been right. Maybe he should just do his job and stop asking questions. The sound came again, that deep, resonant tone that vibrated through the walls. This time David was sure. It was a voice. Weak, distant, but definitely a voice. Speaking words he could not understand. David looked down at his tablet. He thought about Ash alone in the dark for 1,000 years. He thought about life support systems failing while everyone looked away. He thought about the kind of person he wanted to be. His finger moved toward the override code. Then Brent's hand caught his wrist. David had not heard him approach. I told you to forget about this, Brent said. His voice was not angry, just tired. Something is dying in there. Something dangerous. How do you know? Have you ever seen it? Has anyone? Brent released David's wrist and stepped back. You want to know what I know? I know that every species agrees. The Quillans, the Serpents, the Gatherers, the Stone People, species that agree on nothing else all agree that Section 7 must remain sealed. Do you think you are wiser than all of them? I think I have working eyes and a functioning conscience, David said. The life support is failing. In another 50 years, whatever is in there will suffocate, and everyone will just let it happen. Yes, Brent said simply, because that is safer than the alternative. Safer for who? Brent did not answer. He just turned and walked away, leaving David alone with the sealed doors and his conscience. David stood there for a long time, his hand hovering over the control panel. He thought about the consequences of opening those doors. He could lose his job. He could be thrown off the station. He could die if the stories about Ash were true. But he kept thinking about that voice in the dark. About 1,000 years of isolation. About a punishment that had become torture. David entered the override code. The doors shuddered and began to open, revealing darkness beyond. Cold air rushed out, carrying a smell of age and neglect. David activated his helmet light and stepped forward. The corridor beyond was covered in frost. His breath formed clouds in the thin air. Warning lights flickered weakly along the walls, most of them dead. The place felt abandoned, forgotten. He walked deeper into Section 7, following the corridor as it curved downward. The walls here were scarred with what looked like claw marks, deep gouges in the metal, signs of an ancient struggle. Then David saw it, a chamber ahead, vast and circular. And in the center of that chamber, something huge moved in the darkness. David's light found scales, black scales that seemed to absorb the light. Then wings folded tight against a massive body, then chains glowing with a faint blue energy wrapped around limbs and neck and tail. The dragon raised its head. Eyes opened, reflecting David's light back at him. Eyes that held intelligence and pain and a weariness so deep it seemed to have weight. Go away, the dragon said. The words came out broken, filtered through a translator that struggled with the ancient language. Everyone always goes away. Better that way. David stood frozen, staring at the creature from stories and nightmares. Ash was even larger than he had imagined, but also thinner, weaker. The chains had cut into the dragon's flesh in places, leaving scars that looked centuries old. "I am not going away," David heard himself say. The dragon's eyes narrowed. "Then you are a fool. They will kill you for coming here. They kill anyone who shows kindness. I learned that a long time ago." David took a step closer. The dragon flinched as if expecting a blow. The reaction broke something in David's chest. "I am going to help you," David said. "Help?" The dragon's laugh was bitter and painful. "No one helps the monster. That is not how this story goes." "Then maybe it is time for a different story." David approached the chains, studying them carefully. They were made of some material he did not recognize, covered in symbols that pulsed with energy. Complex, sophisticated, designed to cause pain. "You should not touch those," Ash said. "They hurt anyone who tries." David reached out and placed his hand on one of the chains. It felt cold and strange, but it did not hurt him. Ash's eyes widened in shock. "How are you?" "I'm just trying to understand how they work," David said, examining the connection points, "so I can figure out how to remove them." For a long moment, Ash said nothing. Then in a voice so quiet David almost missed it, "Why?" "Because this is wrong," David said simply. "Because no one deserves this." "Because I can help." Ash stared at him with those ancient eyes. "If they discover what you are doing, they will throw you into space." David smiled, though his hands were shaking. "Then I guess I will have to work fast." He pulled out his tablet and began scanning the chains, taking measurements, analyzing the energy patterns. Ash watched in silence, as if afraid to believe this was real. "I will come back tomorrow," David said finally. "I will bring water and food, and we are going to figure this out together." "I do not even know your name," Ash said. "David. My name is David Reed." "David." The dragon tested the word. "Thank you, David Reed. Even if this is just a dream before I finally die, thank you." David walked out of Section 7 with his mind racing. He had no idea how he was going to free Ash, but he knew with absolute certainty that he had to try. Behind him in the darkness, Ash closed their eyes and felt something they had not felt in 1,000 years. Hope. David returned to Section 7 the next night carrying supplies he had gathered during his shift. Water purification tablets, protein bars, a medical scanner, and a portable heater. It was not much, but it was a start. Ash was awake when David entered the chamber. The dragon had moved slightly, as if trying to find a more comfortable position among the chains. It was impossible, David realized. The chains were designed to prevent comfort. "You came back," Ash said. There was surprise in the dragon's voice. "I said I would." David set down his supplies and approached slowly. "I brought water." "Can you drink?" Ash's throat moved in what might have been a laugh or a sob. "I have not had clean water in 200 years. The condensation from the walls, that is all." David poured water from his container into a basin he had brought. Ash lowered their head and drank slowly, as if afraid the water might disappear. David watched the dragon's throat move, saw how thin Ash had become beneath those scales. "When did they last feed you?" David asked. "Feed?" Ash raised their head. "The dragons who chained me here believed I should suffer. Food was not part of the punishment. I learned to slow my metabolism, to enter long sleeps. I wake sometimes when I hear sounds beyond the doors. Then I sleep again. It has been this way for longer than I can remember clearly." David felt anger rising in his chest. This was not punishment. This was torture. Slow execution stretched across centuries. He spent the next hour working on the life support systems in Section 7, bringing them back to full function. The temperature rose. The air grew cleaner. Ash watched him work with an expression David could not quite read. "Why are you doing this?" Ash asked finally. "Because I can," David said. "Because no one else will." "You do not know what I did. The stories they tell about me. Ruth told me some of it. She said you refused to destroy a colony, that you fought your own people to protect others." Ash was quiet for a long time. Then the dragon began to speak, and David listened as 1,000 years of history unfolded. "The Dragon Empire believed we were superior to all other forms of life," Ash said. "We took what we wanted. We destroyed what we did not need. I was a guardian, one of the Empire's warriors. I believed in our cause. I believed we were bringing order to chaos." David sat down on the cold floor, his back against a piece of ancient machinery. Ash continued. "Then they sent me to a colony world. A small planet barely worth noticing. It was home to the Quillen people and two other species that had learned to live together. The Empire wanted the planet for its resources. My orders were clear. Remove the inhabitants. All of them. But you did not, David said. I went to the planet intending to follow my orders, Ash said quietly. But I spent time there first observing. I saw how they had built their society, how different species worked together, helped each other, created something beautiful. I saw parents teaching their children. I saw joy and music and art. I saw life. Ash's chains clinked softly as the dragon shifted position. I reported back to the Empire. I told them the colony should be left alone, that these people had as much right to exist as we did. They told me I had grown weak. They sent another guardian to complete the mission. Ash's voice grew harder, so I fought. I fought my own kind to protect people I barely knew. I destroyed the Empire's fleet. I saved the colony. And they chained you here for it, David said. They wanted to make an example of me, to show what happens to dragons who betray their own kind. They chained me in this station and told everyone I had gone mad, that I was dangerous, that I had destroyed innocent lives. They reversed the truth. Ash looked directly at David. And it worked. For 1,000 years it worked. Everyone believes the monster in the dark deserves to be here. David stood up and walked to the chains, examining them more closely with his tools. These are not just restraints. They are connected to your nervous system. Yes, they cause pain whenever I try to use my strength. The Empire's engineers were very clever. I cannot break them without killing myself. David ran his scanner over the nearest chain, studying the energy readings. There are 7 connection points. They all need to be deactivated simultaneously. If even one remains active, the whole system stays locked, which is why I have been here for 1,000 years. One person cannot disable 7 points at once. No, David agreed. But maybe we do not need to break the chains. Maybe we just need to convince them to let go. Over the following nights, David fell into a routine. He would work his regular shift, then slip into Section 7 with supplies and equipment. He brought food synthesized to match what records suggested dragon biology needed. He brought medical supplies and treated the wounds where the chains had cut deepest. He brought old books and recordings, things to occupy Ash's mind. Slowly, Ash grew stronger. The dragon's scales regained some of their luster. The voice grew steadier. But more than physical healing, David saw something else changing. Ash began to hope again, to believe that maybe after 1,000 years the story might have a different ending. They talked for hours. Ash told David about the Dragon Empire, about worlds David had never heard of, about the war that had consumed that entire era of galactic history. David told Ash about Earth, about humanity's own struggles with prejudice and injustice, about how his species was still learning to be better. Your people are young, Ash said one night. Perhaps that is why you still question things. The older species, they have learned to accept what is. They do not fight against the current anymore. Or maybe they are just tired, David suggested. Maybe they need someone to remind them why fighting matters. On the 8th night, David brought his tablet showing his analysis of the chains. I think I have figured it out. The chains are controlled by a central locking mechanism, but each connection point has its own independent power source. If we can drain those power sources simultaneously, the locks should release. How do you drain 7 power sources at once? I am still working on that part. Ash made a sound that might have been laughter. You are either very brave or very foolish, David Reed. Probably both. David sat down and looked up at the massive dragon. Can I ask you something? After 1,000 years of this, how do you not hate everyone? How are you not filled with rage? Ash was quiet for a moment. I was filled with rage. For the first century, maybe 2. I screamed and fought against the chains until I had no voice left. I cursed every being that walked past those doors. The dragon's eyes grew distant. But rage is exhausting. It burns hot and then it burns out. What remains afterward is a choice. I could let the hate consume me, let it prove the Empire right about what I had become. Or I could remember why I fought in the first place. The colony you saved. Yes. I like to imagine their descendants are still out there, living their lives, creating beauty, raising children. As long as I remember that, as long as I hold on to why I made my choice, then the Empire did not win. They chained my body, but they could not chain what I believe. David felt something shift in his chest. He had come here thinking he was saving someone. But Ash was teaching him something about courage he had never fully understood before. "I am going to get you out of here," David said. "I do not know how yet, but I promise you I am going to find a way. And if you cannot, then at least you will not die alone in the dark. At least someone will know the truth." Ash lowered their head until it was level with David. The dragon's eyes, ancient and knowing, studied the human for a long moment. "You know what will happen when the others find out what you are doing. They will not understand. They will not forgive. I know, you could lose everything. Your job, your place here, maybe your life. I know that too. Then why?" David thought about his answer carefully. "Because I got divorced a few months ago. Because I lost my job and my home and everything I thought my life was supposed to be. Because I came here feeling empty and lost. And then I found you, and for the first time in months I have a purpose. Something worth doing. Someone worth helping," he smiled. "So in a way you are saving me as much as I am saving you." Ash closed their eyes. When they opened them again, David saw something glistening there. "Dragons do not cry," Ash said softly. "That is what we tell ourselves. That is what makes us strong." "Maybe being strong means letting yourself feel things," David said. "Even pain. Even tears." That night, David left Section 7 with a plan forming in his mind. He could not disable the chains alone. He was going to need help, which meant he was going to have to convince others to see what he saw, to care about what he cared about. It was going to be the hardest thing he had ever done. But looking back at Ash, at the dragon who had sacrificed everything for strangers 1,000 years ago, David knew he had to try. Some chains were made of metal and energy. Others were made of fear and silence and the willingness to look away from suffering. David Reed was going to break them all. David knew he could not do this alone, but choosing who to trust felt like standing at the edge of a cliff. Tell the wrong person, and everything would end before it began. But the chains required 7 people working in perfect coordination. He needed help. He started with Brent. His supervisor sat in his office reviewing maintenance reports when David entered. Brent looked up, his forearms momentarily still. "You have been going into Section 7, Brent said. It was not a question. David's heart hammered, but he kept his voice steady. "Yes. I knew after the second time. The logs show every door access. I have been waiting for you to stop." Brent set down his tablet. "But you have not stopped. I cannot stop. If you saw what I have seen and I do not want to see." Brent stood up, agitation clear in his movements. "Do you understand what you are risking? Not just for yourself, but for everyone on this station? If Ash breaks free, if the dragon attacks—" "Ash is not going to attack anyone," David interrupted. "The dragon is barely strong enough to stand. And even if Ash wanted to hurt people, which Ash does not, those chains have been torture devices for 1,000 years. We are the monsters here, Brent, not the dragon." "We? I had nothing to do with what happened 1,000 years ago. Neither did I. But we are the ones who walk past those doors every day knowing someone is dying in there. We are the ones who could help but choose not to." David took a breath. "I need your help. The chains can be disabled, but I need 7 people working together. Please, Brent, come meet Ash, see for yourself." Brent was silent for a long time. His arms crossed and uncrossed, a sign of internal struggle David had learned to recognize. "If I report this, you will be removed from the station," Brent said finally. "I know. If I do not report this and something goes wrong, I will be responsible. I know that too. You are asking me to risk everything based on your judgment. Your judgment when you have been here less than 2 weeks." David met Brent's eyes. "I am asking you to risk something based on what is right. Not on rules, not on fear, but on what you know in your hearts is right. All 4 of them." Brent made a sound that might have been a laugh or a groan. "You are either inspiring or insane. I have not decided which. Come meet Ash, then decide." They went to Section 7 together during the next night shift. Brent moved slowly, his fear obvious in every step. When they entered the chamber and Ash raised their head, Brent froze. "Another visitor," Ash said softly. "I am becoming quite popular after 1,000 years of solitude." "This is Brent," David said. "My supervisor. I am trying to convince him to help." Ash studied Brent with those ancient eyes. "You are terrified. I can smell it. Everyone who knows about me is terrified." "I was told you destroyed a fleet," Brent said, his voice shaking. "That you killed thousands. I did destroy a fleet. My own people's fleet. To save thousands who would have been murdered. Ash shifted and the chains clinked. But I understand your fear. Fear is easier than truth. It asks less of you. Tell him what you told me, David urged. About the colony. About why you are really here. Ash told the story again. Brent listened, his forearms gradually uncrossing. When Ash finished, Brent approached the chains, examining them the way David had. These are designed to cause pain, Brent said, recognition in his voice. This is not imprisonment. This is torture. Yes, Ash said simply. Brent turned to David. Even if we free Ash, what then? Where does the dragon go? The moment anyone sees Ash leaving Section 7, they will panic. They will call for help. Military ships will come. Then we need more than just the 7 of us, David said. We need witnesses. People who will see Ash walking free and understand that the dragon is not a threat. You are talking about changing 1,000 years of accepted truth. You are talking about making people question everything they believe. Yes, David said. I am. Brent looked between David and Ash, clearly wrestling with himself. Finally, he sighed. I must be as insane as you are. I will help. But we need others, and they will not be easy to convince. Ruth was the next person they approached. The old Quillen listened to their plan in her empty bar, her expression unreadable. My grandfather's grandfather was from the colony Ash saved, Ruth said when they finished. That story has been passed down through my family for generations. We knew the truth, but we kept silent because speaking it meant being labeled crazy or worse. Will you help us? David asked. I am old. I have lived long enough to see what staying silent accomplishes. Ruth stood up straighter than David had ever seen her stand. Yes, I will help. And I know 3 others who might join us. People whose families remember the truth. Over the next several days, they recruited carefully. A Quillen engineer named Phil who had always questioned the official stories. A stone person called Boulder who believed in justice above tradition. A serpentine technician named River who had lost family to similar injustices. 2 more workers who were simply decent people willing to do the right thing when asked. 7 people willing to stand against 1,000 years of fear. They planned the attempt carefully. They would disable the chains during a shift change when Section 7 would not be actively monitored. They would need 47 minutes to drain the power sources simultaneously. David had built custom tools for each person, designed to tap into the chain's energy systems and redirect the power safely. Then Commander Rel found out. David was in Section 7, going over the plan with Ash one more time, when the lights suddenly came on at full power. Commander Rel entered the chamber flanked by station security, her serpentine body coiled in anger. Step away from the prisoner, Rel commanded. David stood his ground. Ash is not a prisoner. Ash is the victim of an injustice that has lasted too long. You are tampering with sealed containment. You are risking the safety of everyone on this station. Rel's eyes fixed on David with cold fury. You are relieved of duty, effective immediately. Security will escort you to the brig. No, Brent said, stepping forward. To David's surprise, the others were there too. Ruth, Phil, Boulder, River, and the 2 others. All 7 of them standing together. This is not a democracy, Brent, Rel said. You will all stand down or you will all face charges. Then charge us, Ruth said. Her old voice was steady. Charge us for having the courage you lack. Rel's body tensed. You do not understand what you are doing. The dragon is dangerous. Have you ever spoken to Ash? David asked. Have you ever asked why the dragon is chained here? I know the records. You know the lies, David interrupted. The Dragon Empire is gone, Commander. The people who chained Ash here are dust, but you are perpetuating their punishment, their injustice, because it is easier than questioning what you were told. I am protecting this station. From what? David gestured at Ash, who had remained silent through the confrontation. From a dragon who has been slowly starving for 1,000 years? From someone who sacrificed everything to save innocent lives? Or are you protecting yourself from having to admit that we have all been complicit in torture? Rel was silent. David pressed on. You have a choice right now, Commander. You can stop us by force. You can maintain the status quo. You can make sure nothing changes and nothing gets better. Or you can let us try to correct a 1,000-year-old wrong. You can be part of the solution instead of part of the problem. And if the dragon attacks? If I am wrong to trust you? Then you have security right here. Then you can say you tried to give justice a chance. David took a step forward. But if you stop us without even trying, you will never know. You will spend the rest of your life wondering if you did the right thing. And I think you already know the answer. The chamber was silent except for the hum of the station's systems. Rel looked at David, then at the others standing with him, then at Ash. "Tell me," Rel said to the dragon. "If we free you, what will you do?" Ash raised their head, meeting Rel's eyes. "I will leave. I will find some quiet place far from others and try to remember what freedom feels like. I will tell anyone who asks the truth about what happened here. And I will thank the people who showed me that kindness still exists in this galaxy. That is all? That is everything," Ash said softly. Rel was quiet for a long time. The security officers looked at her, waiting for orders. David held his breath. Finally, Rel turned to her security team. "Leave us. All of you, Commander," one of the officers asked. "That is an order. Go." The security officers filed out, confusion clear in their movements. Rel waited until they were gone, then turned back to David and the others. "You have 1 hour," she said quietly. "If this goes wrong, I was never here. I never helped you. Understood?" David felt relief flood through him. "Understood." Rel uncoiled slightly. "I have spent 20 years commanding this station. I have maintained order, followed protocols, kept everyone safe by not questioning too much. But you are right. Knowing the truth and doing nothing is its own kind of crime." She looked at Ash. "I am sorry it took so long for someone to care." "Better late than never," Ash said. There was something like forgiveness in the dragon's voice. Rel moved to the chamber's main control panel. "I can disable the monitoring systems for exactly 1 hour. After that, other commanders will notice. Whatever you are going to do, do it now." David looked at his team. 7 people standing against 1,000 years of fear. 7 people willing to risk everything for what was right. "Let us break some chains," he said. Each person took their position around Ash, holding the devices David had built. 7 connection points, 7 power sources, 7 people who had chosen to act when it would have been easier to look away. "This has to happen simultaneously," David reminded them. "We drain the power over 45 minutes, slowly enough that the safety systems do not trigger. When I give the signal, we disconnect all at once. Everyone clear?" Nods around the circle. Ash watched them with an expression David had learned to read over their time together. Hope mixed with fear, as if the dragon was afraid to believe this was really happening. "Ready?" David said. "Begin draining on my mark." 3, 2, 1 mark. 7 devices activated with a soft hum. Energy began flowing from the chains into the portable cells David had modified. The chain's blue glow started to dim, slowly, almost imperceptibly. "How does it feel?" David asked Ash. "Strange." "The pain is lessening. I had forgotten what it felt like not to hurt." Ash's voice was quiet, reverent. "Even if this fails, thank you for giving me these minutes." "It is not going to fail," Brent said, his forearms steady on his device. "We are too stubborn to fail." Ruth laughed softly. "Stubborn is the right word for this group." They worked in silence for a while, monitoring their devices, watching the energy levels drop. Everything was going according to plan. The chains were releasing their power exactly as David had calculated. Then, at the 20-minute mark, alarms began blaring throughout the station. "What is that?" Phil asked, his device wavering. "Keep steady," David commanded. "Do not stop the drain." "Rel, what is happening?" The commander checked her tablet, her face growing concerned. "Power surge in the eastern sector. Something big just docked with the station. I need to check on this." She slithered quickly from the chamber. The 7 of them continued their work, but David could feel the tension rising. Every second felt stretched, every sound magnified. Rel returned 5 minutes later, moving fast. "We have a problem. A military vessel just arrived. They received reports of suspicious activity in Section 7. Someone must have alerted them before I shut down the monitoring." "How long do we have?" David asked, not stopping his work on the power drain. "They are demanding access to Section 7. I told them I need to verify their credentials, but that will only buy us maybe 20 minutes. David checked his timer. 25 minutes left on the drain. They were not going to make it. "We keep going," David said firmly. "We have come too far to stop now." "If they catch us in the middle of this, they will lock us all up," Boulder said. The stone person's voice was steady but concerned. "Then they lock us up," Ruth said. "But at least we tried." River's device suddenly sparked. The serpentine technician hissed in surprise. "Something is wrong. The power is fluctuating." David moved to check River's connection point. The energy flow was erratic, jumping between levels. The chain is fighting the drain. It has some kind of protective protocol I did not account for. Can you fix it? Brent asked. Not without stopping the drain entirely, and if we stop now the system will reset. We would have to start over. Ash shifted slightly, causing all the chains to rattle. Leave me. If the military finds you here, they will make your lives miserable. I have already endured 1,000 years. I can endure more. Absolutely not, David said. We finish this. He moved to River's position, examining the connection more closely. The protective protocol was clever, designed to prevent exactly what they were trying to do. But it had a weakness. It assumed whoever was tampering with the chains would panic when the power fluctuated, would try to compensate by increasing the drain rate. River, I need you to hold steady no matter what happens. The fluctuations are going to get worse before they get better. Do not adjust anything. Just hold the drain rate constant. River nodded, gripping the device tighter. The fluctuations increased. Energy sparked and crackled around the chain. River's scales showed signs of strain, but the technician held firm. David watched the readings, counting seconds, trusting his calculations. Then the fluctuations stopped. The protective protocol had exhausted itself. The drain continued smoothly. Good work, David said. Everyone else, status? 6 confirmations came back. All systems nominal. The drain continued. Rel checked her tablet again. The military is getting impatient. I am running out of excuses. How much time do we have? David asked. 10 minutes. Maybe less. David checked their progress. They needed 15 more minutes to fully drain the power sources. They were going to be caught in the middle of this. New plan, David said. Rel, you are going to let them into Section 7. What? Several voices asked at once. We are going to finish this in front of them. Let them see what we are doing. Let them see Ash. Let them witness the truth. They will stop us, Phil protested. Maybe, or maybe they will see what we see. Maybe they will question why they are protecting a 1,000-year-old injustice. David looked around at his team. We always knew this would go public eventually. We just thought it would be after Ash was free. This way we show them we have nothing to hide. Rel considered for a moment, then nodded. It is your choice. I will bring them in. But I cannot protect you once they see what you are doing. We know, Ruth said. Bring them in. Rel left again. The 7 of them continued their work, draining power from chains that had held Ash for longer than some civilizations had existed. David found himself thinking about what would happen after this. Best case, they succeeded and Ash went free. Worst case, they ended up in prison. Either way, his life was about to change forever. He looked up at Ash. The dragon was watching him with those ancient eyes. I am glad it was you. Ash said softly. Of all the beings who could have found me, I am glad it was a human who still remembered how to care. Humans are good at caring, David said. We are also good at screwing things up, but we try to care while we do it. Footsteps echoed in the corridor. Multiple footsteps. The military had arrived. 5 soldiers entered the chamber, weapons ready, followed by a commander whose scales marked him as a senior officer. They stopped when they saw the scene before them. 7 people working methodically, while a dragon sat chained in the center of the room. What is the meaning of this? The military commander demanded. We are correcting an injustice, David said calmly, not stopping his work. These chains have been torturing this dragon for 1,000 years. We are removing them. This dragon is a prisoner. Tampering with secured containment is a serious crime. This dragon is a political prisoner from an empire that does not exist anymore. Maintaining torture is also a serious crime. We are stopping it. The military commander moved closer, his eyes narrowing as he studied the chains and the devices they were using. You are draining the containment field. If you complete this process, the dragon will be free. That is the idea, Ruth said. Freedom. Perhaps you have heard of it? Commander Rel, you allowed this? The military commander turned to her. Rel straightened. I made a choice. These people asked for 1 hour to attempt something I should have attempted years ago. I gave them that hour. You will all face court-martial. Probably, Rel agreed. But I will face it knowing I finally did the right thing. The military commander looked uncertain. He had clearly expected to find something different here. Criminals, maybe, or people acting in secret with guilty consciences. Instead, he found people working openly, calmly, as if they had nothing to hide. Why are you doing this? He asked David. Because someone had to. Because knowing about suffering and doing nothing about it is not neutral. It is choosing the side of suffering. David met the commander's eyes. Why are you trying to stop us? Because those are my orders. Whose orders? The Dragon Empire that imprisoned Ash is gone. Who exactly are you protecting here? What are you protecting? The military commander did not answer. He looked at Ash, at the chains cutting into ancient flesh, at the obvious signs of long neglect and suffering. Tell me your story, he said to Ash. Before I decide what to do here, tell me why you are in these chains. Ash told the story again, about the colony, the refusal, the fight, the punishment. The military commander listened in silence. His soldiers lowered their weapons slightly, also listening. When Ash finished, the commander was quiet for a long time. I knew a version of this story, he said finally. I was told the dragon here had betrayed the Empire, had killed innocents. That is what everyone is told. And now you know the truth, David said. What are you going to do with it? The timer on David's device showed 5 minutes remaining. They were close, so close. The military commander looked at his soldiers, then back at David and his team. If I let you complete this, I am defying standing orders from the Galactic Council. Orders that have been in place for centuries. Yes, David said simply. And you believe this is worth that? I know it is. The commander stood there, wrestling with his decision. Every second felt like an hour. David kept draining power from the chains, trusting that whatever happened, they had done their best. Finally, the military commander spoke. I need to see how this ends. I need to know if the dragon will attack once freed, if the warnings were true. He looked at his soldiers. Stand down. Let them finish. Relief flooded through David. Thank you. Do not thank me yet. If the dragon shows any aggression, we will respond. Understood? Understood, Ash said. But I promise you I have no desire to hurt anyone. I just want to leave. I just want to be free. The final 5 minutes passed in tense silence. The chain's glow faded to almost nothing. David watched his readouts, counting down the seconds. 30 seconds, he announced. When I give the signal, everyone disconnect simultaneously. Ready? 6 acknowledgements, 20 seconds, 15, 10. David's heart pounded. 1,000 years of imprisonment was about to end. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Disconnect now. 7 devices disconnected at once. The chain's glow died completely. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the chains fell away, clattering to the floor with sounds like bells. Ash stood slowly, carefully, as if testing whether freedom was real. The chains lay on the floor like dead snakes, their blue glow completely extinguished. For the first time in 1,000 years, the dragon was unchained. The military soldiers tensed, weapons ready despite their commander's orders. David held his breath. Everything depended on these next moments. Ash stretched, wings unfurling to their full span. The chamber was barely large enough to contain them. Dark scales caught the light, and David realized that beneath the neglect and suffering, Ash was beautiful. Powerful and ancient and magnificent, the dragon looked at David and the others who had worked to free them. Then Ash did something no one expected. The dragon bowed, lowering their head in a gesture of respect and gratitude. Thank you, Ash said. The words were simple, but they carried the weight of 1,000 years of suffering ended. I had forgotten what it meant to be seen as something other than a monster. The military commander stepped forward cautiously. What will you do now? Leave, Ash said simply. Find somewhere quiet. Remember what it feels like to fly without chains. Perhaps find others of my kind, if any remain. Tell them what humans did for me so they know that kindness is not extinct in this galaxy. Just like that. After 1,000 years of imprisonment, you simply want to leave peacefully? Ash's eyes, ancient and knowing, fixed on the commander. What would you have me do? Take revenge on people who had nothing to do with my imprisonment? Prove that the Empire was right about me? I fought for life once. I will not become what they said I was simply because they treated me as if I already were. The commander was quiet for a moment. Then he holstered his weapon. I need to report this. The Galactic Council will want to investigate, but I will tell them what I saw here. I will tell them the truth. That is all I ask, Ash said. David approached the dragon slowly. Ash lowered their head again, and David placed his hand on the dragon's snout. The scales were warm and rough under his palm. Where will you go? David asked. Far from here. There are quiet places in the galaxy. Systems no one claims or wants. I will find one and make it home. Ash paused. Will you be in trouble for this? Probably. But it was worth it. You barely know me. You risked everything for someone you met only days ago. David smiled. I know enough. I know you chose to save lives when you could have taken them. I know you survived 1,000 years of torture without losing yourself. I know you are someone worth saving. Ash made a sound that might have been laughter or crying. Humans are strange creatures. I hope your species never loses that strangeness. Ruth stepped forward, her old eyes bright. My family remembers what you did for us, Ash. We never forgot. We kept the truth alive even when no one believed us. The colony survived? Ash's voice was suddenly urgent. They are still out there? Yes, 5 planets now, thriving and peaceful. All because you gave them a chance. Ash closed their eyes. David saw tears slip from between the dragon's eyelids. Then it was worth it. All of it was worth it. The rest of the team approached one by one, each saying their farewells. Brent, who had overcome his fear. Phil, who had questioned authority. Boulder, who had stood firm. River, who had held steady when the chains fought back. The 2 others whose courage had been quiet but essential. Finally, Rel slithered forward. I am sorry I did not act sooner. I am sorry it took a human who had been here less than 2 weeks to show me what I should have seen years ago. You acted when it mattered, Ash said. That is what counts. The military commander cleared his throat. If you are going to leave, now would be the time. Before more ships arrive and this becomes complicated. Ash nodded. The dragon moved toward the corridor leading out of Section 7, moving slowly at first as if relearning how to walk without chains. David and the others followed, a strange procession through the abandoned section of the station. They reached the outer hull access, a large airlock designed for cargo. Ash paused at the threshold, looking back at the place that had been prison for so long. I should hate this station, Ash said, but I cannot. Because this is where I met you, David Reed. This is where I learned that after 1,000 years of silence, someone still cared enough to listen. What will you tell others about humans? David asked. Ash considered the question. I will tell them that humans are curious and stubborn and sometimes foolish. That they question things they should probably leave alone. That they touch chains that others fear to approach. The dragon's eyes gleamed. And I will tell them that these qualities, these strange human qualities, make them capable of extraordinary compassion. That when a human decides something is wrong, they will work to fix it even when it is dangerous, even when it makes no logical sense, even when everyone tells them to stop. That sounds about right, Ruth said with a laugh. Ash moved to the airlock entrance. David opened the outer door and space yawned beyond. The dragons spread their wings, testing them, remembering how they worked. Will you be okay? David asked. I mean, physically. It has been a long time since you flew. I will manage. My kind are built to endure. Ash looked back one more time. Goodbye, David Reed. Goodbye to all of you. You gave me back my life. I will not waste it. Then Ash leaped into space, wings catching the light of distant stars. David watched through the airlock window as the dragon flew, really flew, for the first time in a millennium. Ash spun and dove and soared, and even through the window, David could feel the joy radiating from those movements. The dragon grew smaller, a dark shape against the stars, and then was gone. David closed the airlock and turned to find the military commander watching him. You know there will be consequences, the commander said. The council will not simply accept this. There will be investigations, hearings, possibly criminal charges. I know, David said. Was it worth it? David thought about Ash flying free, about chains that had fallen silent, about 1,000-year injustice finally ended. Yes, it was worth it. The following days were complicated. The Galactic Council demanded explanations. David and his team were questioned repeatedly. Commander Rel was temporarily relieved of her command while her actions were reviewed. The story spread quickly through the station and beyond, generating fierce debate. Some called David a hero. Others called him a fool who had released a dangerous creature. The galactic news networks could not decide whether to celebrate or condemn what had happened. But something interesting began to occur. Other species started coming forward with stories similar to Ash's. Other prisoners held in other forgotten places, punished by civilizations that no longer existed. People began questioning the chains they had accepted without question. Ruth's bar became a gathering place for these discussions. David spent his evenings there listening to stories, learning about other injustices that had been normalized over time. He was there when the message arrived, 3 weeks after Ash had left. It came through the station's long-range communication system, tagged for David Reed specifically. He opened it on his tablet and an image appeared. A nebula, vast and beautiful, painted in shades of blue and purple, stars scattered like diamonds against darkness. Below the image, a simple text message. "Thank you for reminding me what kindness looks like. The galaxy almost made me forget. I found my quiet place. I am home. Ash." David smiled and showed the message to Ruth and the others. They passed his tablet around, each looking at the image, at the proof that Ash was out there somewhere, finally free. "You did good, kid," Ruth said, patting his shoulder. "You did real good." A month after Ash's departure, the Galactic Council reached their decision. David was fired from his position at Waystation Tau 9. So were Phil and River. Brent was demoted. Boulder received a formal reprimand. Ruth, being retired, escaped official punishment but was banned from several stations as a troublemaker. Commander Rel was reassigned to a smaller, less prestigious station. But before she left, she sought David out. "I wanted to tell you something," she said. "The Council's decision was not unanimous. Several members argued that what we did was right, that old injustices should not be maintained simply because they are old. We did not win, but we started a conversation." "That is something," David said. "More than something. 3 other ancient prisoners have been released and pardoned since Ash left. The Council is reviewing dozens more cases. You changed something, David Reed. You changed how people think." After Rel left, David packed his belongings. He had no job, no place on the station, and no clear plan for his future. But he felt lighter than he had in years. Brent found him as he was leaving. "Where will you go?" "I do not know yet. Maybe I will travel for a while. See what other chains need breaking." Brent's forearms moved in what David had learned was the Quillen equivalent of a smile. "Of course you will. Humans cannot help themselves. Would you want us any other way?" "No," Brent admitted. "The galaxy needs humans. Someone has to be foolish enough to care." David left Waystation Tau 9 on the same kind of transport that had brought him there months earlier. As the station grew smaller behind him, he thought about how much had changed. He had arrived empty and lost, running from a life that had fallen apart. He was leaving with purpose and direction, even if he did not know exactly where he was going. His tablet chimed with another message. He opened it and found another image from Ash. This time it showed a small moon orbiting a gas giant, with a cave visible on the moon's surface. The message read, "My new home. Small but comfortable. I am learning to rest again. Thank you for teaching me that rest is not the same as giving up." David replied, "Thank you for teaching me that caring is not the same as fixing. That sometimes the most important thing is to witness suffering and refuse to accept it as normal." He sent the message and watched as it disappeared into the vast network of communications that connected the galaxy. Months later, David found work with an organization that investigated historical injustices. His experience with Ash had made him something of an expert on ancient containment systems and forgotten prisoners. He traveled from station to station, planet to planet, looking for others who had been chained and forgotten. He found some. Not many, but some. Each one had a story similar to Ash's. Each one had been suffering while the galaxy looked away. And each one, when freed, reacted with the same gratitude and gentleness that Ash had shown. They were not monsters. They were victims of systems that had outlived their purpose and their justice. David kept in touch with Ash through occasional messages. The dragon was healing, slowly learning to trust again, exploring the quiet corners of space where no one would bother them. One message stood out, arriving on the anniversary of Ash's freedom. "I flew past the colony today, the one I saved 1,000 years ago. It has grown beyond anything I imagined. Cities of light, ships traveling between planets, art and music and life everywhere. I did not land or make contact. I just watched from orbit, remembering why I made the choice I did, knowing it was worth every year in chains. Thank you, David, for ensuring those years finally ended, for showing me that even after a millennium of suffering, kindness still exists. Your species has much to learn, but you also have much to teach. Never stop questioning. Never stop caring. Never stop touching the chains others fear to approach. The galaxy needs more humans like you." David saved that message. He read it whenever he felt tired, whenever the work seemed too hard, whenever people told him to stop asking difficult questions. He read it and remembered a dragon in the dark, chained for 1,000 years, waiting for someone to care, and he kept working, kept searching, kept breaking chains wherever he found them. Because that is what humans do, he thought. They see suffering and refuse to accept it. They question authority and challenge injustice. They reach out to those everyone else fears. They touch the chains no one else will approach, and they work until those chains fall silent. And sometimes, if they are very lucky, they change the galaxy.